Likes big waves, too. From Norahhead, we have Mr. X, Glenn Winton. Glenn did very well in the 1986 OP Pro Surfing Championships at Huntington Beach, California, making it all the way to the finals.
Well, he's also known as Mr. X, and he's been hot this season, you know. He's won an event on the tour this year in Honolulu, and he's been in the top 10 for the last 3 years, so, you know, he's really explosive.
And from Avoca Beach comes Bryce Ellis, probably the tallest competitor at Tavarua. He checks in at 6'3".
Well, people out there probably don't know too much about this guy, but he's a former Australian national amateur champion, and he's a big surfer, as you said, and he's real powerful. He likes to smash that board around, and sometimes he can come up with a big result.
Rounding out the group of Australians is Mitch Thorson, a true power surfer with a lot of power-type moves.
Well, he's the only one of the Australians from the other side of the country, from Western Australia, where the waves are much bigger and more powerful, and this year's his first year in the top 16, and he can do some real power moves.
Well, that rounds out the contingency of surfers from down under. From the United States, we have perhaps the finest group of surfers in the history of the sport, led by a young Todd Holland. He's from Florida.
Well, Todd recently turned pro. He's a former NSSA national team member, and he had a big result just a little while ago in the OP Pro, upsetting defending champ Okalufo in the opening round.
Well, I see a striking similarity between Todd Holland and Tom Curren, a two-time world champion. Maybe you'll see it, too, as we progress throughout the day. One of the more easygoing guys on the tour is Charlie Curren, but when he gets on a wave, this guy's all business.
Well, this guy is the guy from Florida who's really put his name on the map. He's been the top-rated Floridian surfer in the world for the last couple of years, and he's able to do some real different things. As you'll see, he's on a nice-looking wave just here warming up, and he switches feet here, and this is, you know, kind of an unusual thing to throw in.
The Hawaiians are well represented with competitors like Michael Ho from Haleiwa.
Well, this guy, I mean, he's a legend in his own time. He's the most experienced surfer in this whole competition. He's been 11 years in the top 16, and that's just an incredible record.
Well, Michael's going to feel right at home here today because he is joined by his brother and fellow big wave rider, goofy footer, Derek Ho.
Well, Derek's a new face on the scene, and he's one of the young new Hawaiians, and I think he's probably the hottest property in Hawaii today. And I think we're going to see big things from him in the future.
Well, Derek is what's known as a goofy footer, and Peter, this is a good time. What is a goofy foot surfer?
Well, a goofy footer is a surfer that stands with his right foot forward, and in this particular case, it could be a bit of an advantage, you know, because you're going to be facing the wave, and it enables you to set it up a little better, and, you know, we could see a goofy foot right up there in the finals.
Well, it's my guess once again. I think it will come into play later in the competition. We'll find out. The third and final Hawaiian resident is another power surfer from Kailua, Hans Hedemann.
Well, I call Hans the best tradesman in the business. You know, he's capable of winning in any condition, anywhere in the world, and he's the most successful pro surfer in the 80s from Hawaii. He's been in the top 10 every year in the 80s.
In addition to his great surfing abilities, Hans brings a great mental attitude with him. His mind is always in the game. He knows when to have fun and when to get serious. Hans Hedemann, part of the competition here today. The Californians on the World Tour are now joined by this guy. His name is Chris Morrow from Laguna Beach. He just turned pro this past summer.
Well, he's a wild card invite for this event, and he's trying to break into that elite seating order, and this could be a big event for him, you know. He's got a chance here to really put his name out there in front of everybody, and we'll see what he can come up with.
Well, he's a newcomer, and he is surfing with the big boys here in Fiji this week. So Chris Morrow, all the spotlight will be on him, the young guy against some of the best veterans in the sport of surfing. Also from Laguna Beach, and a high school buddy of Chris Morrow, is young Mike Parsons, who is doing well on the ASP World Tour right now.
Well, he's also an NSSA national team graduate, and he's been 3 years on the tour, and he's poised to break into the top 16. You know, he just missed it last year. He finished 20th in the world, and I think this year he might crack it.
Well, he's noted for those big roundhouse turns. You saw one right there. Mike Parsons from Laguna Beach, California, part of the OP Fiji Invitational. A controversial surfer in the sport at times is Brad Gerlach. He can be outspoken, but he backs up his words with some super hot surfing.
Well, there's no question this guy can back it up, and he's got the great power moves. We see a good wrap around into the whitewater right there, and he cracked the top 10 last year, meteoric rise, and I call him the most talented surfer in the world right now from California, next to Curren.
What's interesting about him? His father is his coach, and what's interesting about that is the fact that his father has never ridden a surfboard. Another outspoken competitor is Dave Parmenter from Central California. He's a gutsy surfer that spends most of his time in the chilly waters of Cayucas when he's not on the World Tour.
Well, Dave's strength's in his down-the-line speed, and in a wave like Tavarua, he could be a real threat here. And, he slipped out of the top 16 the past year and has been struggling to find form, so maybe he can find it here.
He'll be enjoying the warm water of Fiji near Santa Barbara. It drops down to about 57 degrees. Last but certainly not least is the world champion, Tommy Curren from Santa Barbara. Quiet, easygoing on land, but a fierce competitor in the water, and that is what has led him to 2 world titles.
Well, without question, Tommy's the best competitive surfer in the world today, and currently he just seems to have that performance edge on everybody. He just seems to be able to pull off the major maneuvers when it really counts. I mean, it gets down to the wire and he can do them.
Tommy learned a lot from his father. His father is Pat Curren, one of the pioneer big wave riders from Hawaii. So, there you have it, a look at the cream of the crop in this fast-growing sport of pro surfing. And now that we have set the scene, don't go away. We'll be back with the preliminary after this. And welcome back. As we sit next to the breaking surf on the Tuitai schooner, once in a while we'll see one of the potential hazards of these tropical waters. Yes, it's a sea snake. Even though they are one of the most deadly snakes in the world, they are non-aggressive, and they don't really have the ability to strike at you, and fortunately, they have very small mouths. It's best, though, to just leave these guys alone. Kids, we remind you, don't try this at home. You get the feeling that this guy would love to climb right in the boat? Well, even though there are critters in the water, it doesn't slow down the competition. Boats carry the surfers from the Tuitai out to the break to save a long paddle. Peter, when we first arrived here, the preliminaries were underway, and it was hot and heavy. They were cranking some great waves out there, so why don't we take a look back now at some preliminary action? Well, as the Tuitai pulled up to Cloudbreak, as the peak is called, day 1 was mean.
Well, you can see the waves had some size, and it gave the guys a chance to warm up to the power of a reef break. You know, there was some real power out there, and they were able to get in some strong moves.
Well, the water, a very pleasant 78 degrees, and that made it nice for everybody competing. And after getting used to the break, competitors were taken by boat back to Tavarua. That was about 3 miles away. And after they unloaded their boards, we got a chance to find out how good the waves were.
Unreal. The biggest laugh? Yeah. Biggest barrel? Much.
With 18 of the top pros and their boards, it took several trips to get everyone to and from the waves because everyone wanted to practice, of course. But at Tavarua, most everybody spent the day getting used to the island and its very unique features. Some decided to paddle out right off the restaurant for more perfect waves. When the sun rose on day number 2, no one realized that the waves would be some of the best ever surfed in competition. Having the world's top pros in the South Pacific on waves like these meant pro surfing at its finest, and unbelievable rides like this late takeoff by Hawaiian Michael Ho became commonplace. And then there was this hot maneuver inside the tube by Dave Parmenter of California. Let's take a closer look at this one. But by far, the most radical maneuver of the day, or of the contest for that matter, was performed by Brad Gerlach. For this wave and this maneuver, he was presented a check for $1,000 from the Coors Company. Yes, on day number 2, the judges had a rough time picking winners because of the level of competition and the consistency of the waves. But at day's end, a standout among the group was the world champion Tommy Curren. He, along with 7 other fellow surfers, would enter the OP Fiji quarterfinals. Now, it may look like a lot of fun dropping in on these fast, well-shaped waves, but there is a downside, an element of danger to it all, if you will. Fiji is surrounded by a treacherous barrier reef. Waves come in from deep water and jump up on the coral, which is jagged and spiked. In fact, we had a casualty this week, and Peter Townend investigated.
I'm sitting here with Chris Morrow. Chris took a bit of a spill in the warm-ups this morning.
Yeah, I did. Didn't tickle.
What do you think of that wave out there? It's pretty testing, eh?
Yeah, the wave is unreal. I mean, even after I hurt myself, I wanted to get back out there, but everybody's going, no, he'll attract sharks.
How did you actually hit the bottom?
Well, I was just having a blast, flying down the line. I did a snap, and the wave started to close out, but someone was paddling over. It was Mitch Thorson. He was paddling over, and I wanted to kick out the back of the wave, but I couldn't because I would have hit him, so I sort of straightened off and tried to prone out, but the whitewater knocked me over, and I just got bounced off the reef a few times, and then I was like in knee-high water, standing on the reef, and there was whitewaters coming at me, and I was just like jumping over these whitewaters too, you know? And I just waved to the guy on the boat, telling him I'm coming over. So, but it just hurt right at the start, and I just sort of kind of paddled out past the waves and sort of inspected, you know. I got them on my heels and my arm, but I'll be back out there tomorrow for sure.
Don't go away. We'll be right back with more exciting competition in a moment.
The main island here is called Viti Levu, and it's got a charm all of its very own. In fact, we had a chance to take a look at this island, and why don't we share that with you right now? The Tuitai. This surfing event would be very difficult to stage without a vessel like the Tuitai being anchored next to the surf break.
All the competitors, their boards, contest officials, judges, and even our TV crew are based out here on this 140-foot schooner. And you probably don't realize it, but we're way out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. We're 12 miles out from Viti Levu.
So I guess what you're saying is we are in the middle of the ocean. You can't exactly grab your surfboard and paddle out to the surf break.
Yeah, you're right, Mike. You know, the surfers are out there and they're brought to the cloud break by boat. It's not the kind of place you want to break your leash and lose your board, that's for sure.
Well, and if you did, don't forget there's all these sea snakes out there snapping at you too, Peter.
Well, I'll tell you what, if I lost my board, I'd be swimming real fast.
Actually, we shouldn't joke about it. They are not that dangerous. They really didn't even present a problem our whole week that we were in Fiji. But nonetheless, on day number 3, the waves dropped a bit, but they did keep some fine shape, Peter.
Well, you know, we're surfing on a reef, and even when the waves get smaller, they keep good shape because the reef keeps the swells nice and clean. Here we see Todd Holland doing a floater, and, you know, that's what I call the move of the 80s. It's a new move developed by these young guys, and we're going to take another look at this wave, and you'll see here as Todd makes his way along the open face, he comes up and he unweights and he throws that board up on the back of the wave there. Now he's floating along with the lip, and now he free falls back down onto the open face. A good move, but not good enough to beat Mike Parsons earlier on.
Todd Holland is one of the most promising young pro surfers, and Peter had a chance to get his impressions of these Fijian waves.
Right now, I'd say it's probably one of the best waves I've ever surfed or in the whole world.
Is it hard for someone like yourself to adjust, you know, coming all the way from Florida to conditions like this?
Well, I've been traveling a lot, but if you're just coming off and you haven't surfed it much, yeah, it is. But it just takes a little while to get used to.
And Todd's fellow team member, Tom Curren, was enjoying himself on long waves like this one in the men's quarterfinals.
Well, Tom, you know, he keeps that board moving all the time, and he's trying to link the sections. Now, as the waves got smaller, it was real important that you read the wave correctly, and Tom has a great sense of rhythm. He's able to look down the line, and you'll see sometimes he's quite away from the breaking part of the wave, but what he's doing is trying to set it up so he gets the length and distance and enables him to do the good power moves.
Being a good surfer on the Pro Tour means riding small waves as well as big waves, right, Peter?
Well, you've got to be able to do it all, and that's why Tom Curren's the world champion 2 years in a row. He's able to do it even when it's small, big, or whatever the size, he can put it all together.
Well, when it looks like there's nothing left in the wave you're looking at right now, Tommy seems to find a way to keep it going, and that's one of his strengths, getting everything out of the wave you can. That's what the judges simply look for. Peter, Tommy was up against a feisty Mike Parsons from California, who you had a chance to coach.
Well, you know, I worked with Mike for a couple of years, along with Tommy earlier on, but Mike stayed in the NSSA national team for quite some time. But you can see here, he just doesn't quite have the leg power of Tommy Curren, and I think he's got a couple of years more to develop yet.
Nonetheless, he learned his surfing trade in Laguna Beach, California. Is that right?
That's correct, and, you know, you can see here he's doing a nice roundhouse wraparound, and that's the kind of moves the judges are looking for, but not quite good enough to beat Tommy.
Well, keep in mind, Tommy Curren is a 2-time world champion. The competition is tough. And in the end, it was the world champion, Tommy Curren, a victor over Mike Parsons, gaining a semifinal entry here at the OP Fiji Invitational.
We'll be back to Fiji in a few moments with some more surfing action.
All right.
Roger, Mission Control. Visual contact confirmed. All manual guidance systems operational. Activate maximum balance controls. Roger, balance systems operational. Begin re-entry sequence. 10, 9, 8.
Invitational. You know, Peter, this is really a TV viewer event and not so much a spectator event.
Well, it might be a little tough to be a spectator at this one. You have to get on a plane for a while, and then you have to sit in a boat for quite some time. But, you know, it's more of a surfers contest, this one. You know, we flew the best surfers in the world here.
Well, those that are here watching are enjoying quarterfinal number 2 between Shane Horan and Hans Hedemann.
Well, we see Shane here. He goes off the top, a little tentative there. You know, he could have hit that a little bit harder. And, you know, he needs to be a little bit more animated, I think. And you can see, I thought he was a little conservative on that wave.
Well, that's Shane Horan. Let's talk about this guy, Hans Hedemann.
Well, you can see Hans on this wave here. He's making very few mistakes, very solid surfing, solid off the bottom, off the top combinations.
And in the end, it was a strong showing by Hans Hedemann that put him in the semifinals. He'll surf against Tommy Curren. In quarterfinal number 3, it was this guy, Chris Morrow. Yes, the same guy who was cut up on the reef, who amazed the judges.
Well, Chris is young and exciting, and he does a lot of snappy moves, and he was having some luck with the waves. You can see this wave connected for a long way down the line. There he does a nice floater over the whitewater, and now he brings it out onto the face, and he's dropping down to the bottom here. He sets it up. He goes up off the top there. Nice, snappy, quick turn there. Now he drops down to the bottom one more time, and he comes off the top again, snaps it off the top again. You know, and he's putting in solid moves and racking up those points on the judges' scorecard.
Hey, maybe it's something in the water in California. 2 of the 18 here today from Laguna Beach. Chris's worthy opponent is Derek Ho. I love this guy, Peter.
Well, he's one of the, I thought was going to be the favorite to win this whole thing. We see 2 solid moves there where he just bangs it off the top. But in this particular heat against Morrow, he was a little out of luck with the waves. And, you know, it takes your best 4, and he really didn't have 4 strong ones.
Well, again, he is one of the 2 goofy footers competing today, and I can't help but believe, and I hate to keep harping on it, it's got to be an advantage sometime along the line today. In quarterfinal number 4, it was 2 Australians, Gary Elkerton against Glenn Winton, another goofy footer.
Well, we see Elkerton trying to pull out all the stops there with a stall, trying to get covered up on his backhand. But with the drop in swell, Elkerton was a little at a disadvantage. He was overpowering these small waves, and I think this is where the goofy foot advantage came into with Glenn Winton. He was able to pick the better down the line waves and do a lot more maneuvers, and this was easily the most convincing quarterfinal win, and he put Elkerton away pretty easily.
Well, if you'll notice, on Winton's hands are gloves. Why does he wear them? It's very simple. It's so that he can get up board speed as he takes off on waves. They're webbed, and it gets up the speed. Well, going into the semifinals against young Chris Morrow is this guy, veteran Glenn Winton. The island of Tavarua itself was built basically to be a surf camp, and that's what it is. Let's take a look at the island of Tavarua. For most of the competitors in the OP Fiji Invitational, this event was a dream come true because it was their first visit to this tropical paradise, and as they arrived at Nandi Airport, you couldn't help but notice the look of excitement, the look of expectation on their faces as they got ready for the boat trip from Viti Levu to Tavarua. Tavarua is probably just like you would envision a secluded tropical island somewhere in the South Pacific to be. But they have upgraded this surf camp to cater to those wishing to experience a comfortable getaway to perfect waves. Guests stay in huts which are called berets. When you've had enough surfing for the day, you just leave your board or boards outside the beret and head off to enjoy some of the other activities available, like volleyball or windsurfing. Ping pong. Or like Peter Townend, enjoy a mean game of Scrabble at the restaurant with the world surfing champion Tommy Curren. On the other side of the small island, you'll find your basic small desert island treehouse. This is the home of Dave and Jeannie Clark, who operate Tavarua Surf Camp and own a multi-year lease on the island with the Fijians. You'll never see Robin Leach do a segment on this treehouse, but to millions of surfers worldwide, this would have to be the ultimate lifestyle. How'd you like to wake up to this type of a view out of the Clark's guest bedroom window? When the wind is up, Jeannie spends time windsurfing right off her front doorstep, and you might find Dave, when he isn't working or surfing, clearing a few deadly sea snakes from the base of his treehouse. And Dave is the first to tell you that there is no problem with the snakes, and he says that they are non-aggressive. But on Tavarua, the biggest hazard isn't from sea snakes resting on the island. It's probably from something else. And back out at Cloudbreak off Tavarua, everyone is prepared for day number 4, the day we've all been waiting for, the semis and the finals. And coming right out of the blocks was Tom Curren with a super opening wave.
Well, you know, now that the swell's dropped a little bit, the selection of the waves is going to become really important. And we see Tommy Curren here on his first ride getting a lot of distance down the line with a lot of maneuvers.
And Hans Hedemann countered with this impressive first wave.
And this isn't a bad opening wave for Hans either, and he goes down the line, but you see there he's caught behind, and here we have another look at it from another angle. He's coming down along the line here, and he sets up here for one final re-entry, but he's actually caught behind the open face of the wave, and we really didn't get the distance that Curren was getting.
So it's Hans Hedemann and Tom Curren battling it out. Tom Curren was very powerful, getting all that he could out of each and every way. Here's an example.
Oh, there was a quick floater, Mike, off the top there, and he comes snapping off the top one more time, and he keeps driving it down the line there, and this is another good wave, 2 in a row here for Tom. And here's a replay of that snap off the face there, just whacks that board right over the cameraman there, and now he's paddling out aggressively looking for another one.
There are some super wave exchanges going on. Hans would put in a very strong performance on a wave, as he is right now, and then he would simply look over his shoulder and he would see Tommy Curren shredding the face of another one right behind him.
And right behind it, it's a bigger wave for Tommy, and he really radical snap off the face there, and he comes off the top again, whacks that lip as hard as he can, bangs it off the top one more time, and drives right past Hans there, and I say Hans is looking for a big one here.
Well, here it is in slow motion, Tommy, right in your living rooms that time. Tommy Curren advances to the finals by defeating Hans Hedemann. Now, in semi number 2, Glenn Winton from Australia, a seasoned veteran of pro surfing, had to face an intense young Chris Morrow from Laguna Beach, California.
And here's Winton up on his first wave, and it's a good one, and he's doing lots of maneuvers, getting a long ride there on his opening ride. And here we have a classic matchup between a goofy and a regular foot, and here's Chris Morrow, the young regular foot on his backhand. And he's got a smaller wave, not quite as big as Winton, and you can see it's kind of fading out on him there. And I'd say Winton got the best of the opening exchange.
What I love about watching these two, and here again is a slow-mo replay of Chris Morrow, no wasted motion, everything concise, every move calculated. That's what makes surfers the great surfers they are today. They think about what they're doing, they train hard, and it simply pays off here at the OP Fiji Invitational. But Winton had long, lined-up waves like this wave, which gave him the ability to pull off powerful maneuvers, utilizing great balance along the way. Look at some of the maneuvers he makes here, Peter.
Well, as you said, this is a very lined-up wave, and it's going down along the reef. You can see it's just skirting right along the edge of the reef. If you look closely, you can see it there in the foreground, and he's just coming off the bottom, off the top. Lots of combinations here, and he continues to go down the line, trying to link those next connections. As we look at the instant replay of that first maneuver, kind of a stalling re-entry there, and he falls back down over the front, back into the pocket again, and comes off the bottom.
And while we ran the replay, he continued to ride the original wave, and watch him pull out way past the Tuitai. Great wave by Glenn Winton. Fortunately, Glenn Winton was far enough ahead of Chris Morrow in points by the time he had this bad wipeout and lost his board.
Yeah, he's doing here what we call the rock dance. And you can see he gets caught behind there, and the lip lands right on his board and breaks his cord, and it just pops out of the whitewater there. And we see Glenn making his way in over the sharp coral, trying to pick up his board.
Well, because of his good surfing earlier in the heat, Glenn Winton will meet Tom Curren in the final. American against Australian, regular foot against goofy foot. We'll be back. North of the island of Tavarua is a beautiful chain of islands known as the Yasawas. They're known for their traditional Fijian villages, empty, secluded beaches, and to tell you the truth, the nicest people you'd ever hope to meet. Back on the schooner Tuitai, anchored off Tavarua Island, preparations are now being made for the main event. We've had 3 days of hardcore surfing. We worked our way through the preliminaries, the semifinals. We have reached the finals, and it is Tommy Curren against Glenn Winton, the man they call Mr. X. And I'm curious, how did he get the nickname?
Well, Mr. X, how he got that name was he'd been in the top 5, top 6 in the world for nearly 3 years, and no one really knew this Glenn Winton character. And it was actually the competitors on the tour that dubbed him Mr. X. And it kind of stuck, you know, the media picked up on it, and so now he's known as X.
Okay, well, it's no mystery now. He made it to the finals of the OP Fiji Invitational, and let's turn to that right now. Tommy Curren and Mr. X, Glenn Winton. Well, somebody's in position right now. It is Mr. X. He's going to drop in. The finals are officially underway, Peter.
And X wastes no time, picks up a good one, nice off the bottom, off the top combination. Here he's stalling for the tube, gets in there, and this is a great start for X. He's on a good wave right from the opening bell.
Well, Mr. X wasted no time. Look at the nice line in front of him. You saw he got the cover up early in the wave. That will impress the judges. There's no question about it. Look at him come off the top one more time. He'll snap it and does a small floater back into the wave. Mr. X setting the scene in the opening wave of the finals at the OP Fiji Invitational. Well, even though the waves have gone down a little bit, they are still real good for competition.
And here's Mr. X still going on this wave, and it's just like that one he got in the semifinals. And here he finishes up with a great re-entry right there at the end, right on the reef. And here's a quick replay of that little tube that he got. Here he is stalling on the tail block there, and there he is right in the pocket, stalling inside, and he comes out nice and clean.
Nice camera angle from the water from our water cameraman Dan Merkel. That's a nice angle to have here at Tavarua. On the outside, it's Tommy Curren dropping in on a nice wave. It's a little wave, but this guy knows how to work them.
But see, now wave selection's playing a big part. You can see he had to milk that wave into that next section, and the wave was small, and now it's built up down that inside section, and he's continuing it. The wave actually got bigger as he went along. Here he is in the action replay. He drops down to the bottom, he goes up the top, and here's a nice clean snap off the face there, slides that tail around off the lip, and goes right past the cameraman.
I asked Tommy his thoughts of Tavarua.
And I really just came here to relax and get good waves and put in a good effort in the contest. And everything worked out real well for me. Even though we live on the beach pretty much all year long, it's actually not all that often that we get to come to a desert island and right here in paradise and just enjoy ourselves.
That was Tommy talking. This is Tommy surfing. Once again, he's ripping it up in the finals.
A couple of snappy moves there. He kind of loses it at the end, but a real power move before that. And here we have a quick replay. And there he does that move of the 80s, that floater.
Well, there's a good example of why Tommy Curren is a two-time world champion. Up and riding outside, Mr. X, Glenn Winton one more time.
Once again, Glenn Winton using that goofy foot style, looking down the line. I had a chance to talk to him a little earlier before the competition.
Do you think it's any advantage being a goofy foot at this place?
If the waves were a bit bigger and maybe a bit more tubey, you know, on the first start it was tubey and that was good. But, yeah, our cloud break, it's pretty fast.
Well, you got to believe that Mr. X loves the left here today. It's a sure shot straight down the line for him. Tommy Curren up and riding outside now.
And here again, Tommy with a radical snap off the face there. And I think Tommy's move seemed to be a little bit more crisp. That was a very hot move off the open face there. And he's still working that wave. Here we have it again in action replay there. Snaps it off the top radically. Free falls back into the base of the wave.
And back outside, look at Glenn Winton get covered up by the wave and goes into a stall. What great presence of mind as he's being covered up. What the heck? Go for it. Stall if you can. A great maneuver by Glenn Winton.
Well, that was a great move from Glenn, and we're going to take a quick look at it once again. We'll see he stalls here and he gets covered up in the pocket, but I think he might stall a little bit too long. He gets in there and he keeps stalling, and then I think it held him back from connecting that next section and probably cost him doing a couple of extra maneuvers and getting the maximum score on this ride.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. He had it going for a moment there. Here's the last wave of the day for Tommy Curren, and right away, a nice roundhouse cutback, Peter.
Well, you know, here's another wave for Tom. You know, he's had those waves where he's pulled off those real powerful, snappy maneuvers, what the judges like to see. And here's a good finishing wave for him right here.
Look out, Mr. Cameraman. Well, okay, it's a very close call, and we'll leave it up to the judges. Will it be Tom Curren or Glenn Winton? We'll know in a moment.